Hello everyone, welcome back to the Nurturing Corner with Shumee. A lot of you wrote in to us to understand how to make the toilet training a much more seamless process for your little one and for yourself. And that is what we will be discussing today in today's episode.
Hindola, can you help us understand or why has toileting become such a hot topic?
Because traditionally in Southeast Asian countries and Aboriginal communities, it's always been a bare bottom culture. So, and elimination, urination, defecation is a very natural process for them. The mother's always close to the baby and picks up on cues. So it happens very naturally. But now, because our lives have become so busy and with the advent of disposable diapers, now we need training for toileting.
Yeah, that's really true. But then, what are the problems associated with diapers?
The natural state of the body is dryness, and the child knows that. And when he's wearing cloth diapers, the child feels the wetness, and then he's changed, and then he feels dry again. So he feels this cause and the effect. But with disposable diapers, because they absorb all the wetness, he feels the cause, he's eliminating, but he doesn't feel any effect of that. And over a period of time, he dissociates with this feeling of elimination.
So, Hindola, like you're also a working mother, and how did you manage this situation? Like when you would be off to work, you would also have to have somebody else look after your child and then do the whole toileting.
So yes, so like I told you, we did use cloth diapers or bare bottom for a part of the day, and when we couldn't, we used disposable diapers, especially at night also, right? Because sometimes some children get really disturbed with wetness, and my child used to get disturbed, and you don't want to break that sleep cycle also, so we used to use disposable at that time. But at some point, you do need to stop it at night also, so that they know how to, once they get the control.
Then again, because toileting again, it's also a cultural thing, but there is attitude. I mean, there's a different attitude people have towards toileting, and the language is very important. Like we as parents, how what language we are using. So, can you just also shed some light on this? How language is important for the child's experience?
So, toileting is such a natural thing, and the child needs to know that it's a natural process of his body and something that's accepted by everyone, right? It's not something to be shameful about. So, our attitude first needs to change towards toileting because that's what we pass on to the child. And using words like yucky or dirty, we're passing on this attitude to the child also. I can share a personal experience. Like, I don't know who used it, but when I had left my child and gone, someone seems to have said it's yucky or dirty and we need to change. And it caught on to him so much that when he had his control of his anal muscles, he started holding his elimination, and it caused a whole cycle of constipation and pain. So that's how much this language and our attitude impacts a child.
So again, like many other milestones and development needs of the child, toileting is also a readiness for the parent, right? In many ways, the parent also needs to be ready to support the child in the toileting process. So how can we be ready for it and do it in the most positive way for the child to have a good experience while the transition?
So I think there are some things that we can do. One is to have a place for changing and a consistent place so that the child knows that if I'm going here, I'm going to be changed. He'll start expecting that. And to, as the child slowly grows, to do the process with the child rather than to the child. And talking through the whole process, even when the child is very little, saying, "I'm going to lift your right leg up. I'm going to lift your left leg up. Now you're going to feel a little wet." Just talking through it. And then when the child is able to crawl, you can say, "Can you get me the new diaper from the basket, please?" When the child is able to stand up, you can ask the child to pull down the pants. So start collaborating with the child slowly, and then lead the child towards independence.
So, Indola, what is the right age, or like when should we start thinking about toileting and start the process for a child?
So, like I said, Meeta, the process has to start right from birth by talking to the child about it. But do not expect the child to do it independently until the child is able to walk, because there's some process called myelinization that happens in our body, And when different parts of our body are myelinized, the child starts getting control of those muscles. So only when the child is able to walk does the child have control over the trunk muscles. And only when he has that anal control can he hold it until he goes to the toilet. So we cannot expect the child to use the toilet independently until he or she can walk. But the process has to start from when they're born by talking to the child and collaborating.
So in this also, like, is it also important for them to have started communicating at that point? Because how would they express that they need to go to the toilet, and because that also is important for us to get the cues. So
Yes.
how is that also related? Like walking and communication both should happen.
Right. So for us to use a consistent language. So if he's urinated, we can say, "Oh, you've done susu," or whatever that you want to use that word. Or if they've eliminated, then you can say, "Oh, you've just pooped." So if you're consistently using these words, then the child picks up on these words. And also one thing that has worked for me is we had always had a open door policy in the bathroom. Like how the child learns watching us doing everything else, the child also needs to know that when the parents want to eliminate, they do use the toilet. So to have an open door policy, if you're comfortable with it, so the child can see the process around that also, then it becomes very natural that once the child has control and has the language to tell that he wants to go, he will automatically tell you that he wants to use.
And like earlier you said also that, I mean, again, to use the right words is very important, to not make it a kind of a very unusual process. So
Yeah.
that's very important for the child. So but this also coincides when they're learning toileting, is also the time they start going out into the world, or they may have started play school at that age. So they're going in an unknown environment, and they're at the same time learning a very, trying to get used to being able to go to the toilet on their own, be more independent there. How do they navigate it in an external environment with unknown people also? So isn't it too much of things happening for them?
I think so too. It is a very difficult one. Firstly, I think it's important for the parents to communicate the language they use at home for if it's susu or poop, to tell the teachers at preschool also to use the same thing. And I think for the first few days, for the parent to just be there at least for a while, so the child is familiar with the environment, with using the toilet along with the parent. And once the parent hands it over to the teacher and the parent trusts the teacher in doing this, then the child also automatically will trust. I feel one or two times for the parent to just watch while the teacher is doing the toileting process with the child helps a lot.
Because I noticed personally, like when my son started play school, he was 1 year 9 months at that time. We were in the toilet training session. He was almost there with his toilet training, but going to school set him back because just an accident there. While the school was supportive, but I think it was the environment which created a little bit of a anxiety in him.
Yeah.
And then it set, I mean, we had to restart
Yeah.
the process completely. So it happens. Yeah. One more thing, that again, night toilet training, that because the child is sleeping, there's so many things happening, how do they start with it? And again, just sharing it from a personal experience, for my younger one, when the night was the biggest, like it was more difficult for us to train him for the night toilet training. And then he would then want diapers at night. He would feel more comfortable sleeping with diapers. So is it okay to continue with that, or one should not try and just strictly go with the no diapers and try with that?
So it depends on, firstly, only when the child is able to use the toilet during the day will you start doing it at night also. And depends on how much of sleep you can, give up during this training process. Because if you use diapers, then that becomes a habit. At some point, you will have to stop using. It may take a week or so, and it is a tough transition. But they need to feel that wetness during the night for them to know that, okay, I have peed now, or I have to go to the toilet. And after a few days, they will have enough control to hold it during the night, or get up and go use the toilet. But also a very good habit to make them use the toilet just before sleeping, for sure. That has to become a bedtime routine.
So one thing that we stopped doing was that give him milk just before bedtime, because we realized that triggers more like the need to go to the toilet. So some small things like this helped. also. One more thing also which happens, like when we are traveling, especially if you're going on a car ride where you know you might not have the possibility of using toilets, there again we as parents in that phase tend to use diapers. So is that something you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't put yourself and the child through so much during traveling. I think all these small periods of time when you go out of the ordinary and the routine, that's fine, because you and your child also need that comfort.
Thank you for sharing these insights, Hindola. So these are really helpful. Remember, parents, toileting is a natural process, and consistency, our attitude towards the whole process, how we are communicating with our child, and tuning into our child's cues will make it a much more smoother experience for the child and for us. Thank you for tuning in today. Do write into us, send us your questions. We are happy to answer all of them. Until then, bye.